Hello everybody, welcome back to our modelled writing videos. So today we're going to look at two task 1 questions. Now task 1 are the tasks in the IELTS writing which you will be presented with some data, and then it's your job to report back on that data, selecting the main features, talking about any comparisons, and producing a nice report on the piece of data. So today we'll be looking at two task 1s, and as we go along I'll be talking about how we can structure them and giving advice on how to approach this type of question. So if that sounds good to you, maybe you've booked your IELTS exam, maybe you just want a bit more information on task 1, then you've come to the right place. Okay, well, let's get started. And the first task is going to look at a process. And in fact, both questions today are processes. Now, this is something that can cause trouble for students. I know that processes are a bit different to, say, the usual type of question. So today we'll be going through some handy tips on how to approach them, and of course we'll be going through the structure together and working on it all together. So not to worry about a process. I'll talk you through how to break it down today. Okay then, so we have the question. The diagram illustrates how bees produce honey. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Let's have a look at the diagram. Here we go. Okay, so we have a 7-step process. Now, questions to ask yourself when you have a diagram or a process in this case. We can, for our overview, this is handy to ask some questions. For example, is this man-made or is this natural? Well, in this case, it's natural. How many stages are there? There's 7. What is being produced? Honey. Where does it start and where does it end? Starts with the bees in the hive and it ends with honey. Is it cyclical, as in does it continue over and over again, or is it linear? This is a cyclical process. It continuously happens. And are any materials added? Well, it doesn't look like there's any materials. So these are the types of questions that you can ask yourself when you're looking at the process. All right then, so with that being said, let's think about our groupings. Now we have a 7-step process. So is there a point in the making of the honey that's quite a good middle point? I would say after step 4 is quite a nice cutoff point, because you have the bees are bringing the nectar and they deposit the nectar into the cells, and then that leads into point 5. So let's do step 1 to 4 for group 1, and then let's do step 5 to 7 for the second group. Okay, our overview. So let's just put some notes for the overview. In general, this 7-step process, maybe we could say this natural, cyclical, 7-step process begins with the bees in the hive and ends with honey being produced. I think that's good. We don't have to overcomplicate this. Processes are actually quite straightforward, really. So I think that's a good approach to this one. Okay, with that being said then, let's go to our write-up. We'll put it all together. And like with any task one, we start with paraphrasing. So we can say the diagram illustrates how bees produce honey. Okay, very short, to the point. We could say something like the pictorial below demonstrates the process of how bumblebees, just to change the word formats a little bit, it's difficult to paraphrase entirely, make I would just keep honey as it is there. The pictorial below demonstrates the process of how bumblebees make honey. Okay, let's go into our overview, which we wrote on our notes. So, in general, this natural cyclical process, cyclical cycle, starts with the bees in the hive. Cyclical 7-step cycle starts with the bees in the hive and ends with honey. Again, I think we don't need to overcomplicate this. Maybe we could say honey being produced. There we go. I think that's good. Okay then, so in a process, it's really important to put timestamps throughout your answer to show the steps. So we want to use words like first, then, next, after that to show the process in order. Okay. So the let's do a nice opening, nice way to open this. The entire, don't want to use cycle process. Maybe it begins with bees in the hive, which then are attracted to flowers. Okay. Now, something to bear in mind with a process, we want to reach the 150 word minimum. So sometimes you might need to just make sure that you're writing enough. I think with processes, it can be easy to not write as much. So we can see if we're doing that today. Okay. It begins with the bees in the hive, which are then attracted to flowers. So sometimes you might need to write literally what is happening, which are then attracted to flowers. Maybe we could say which then fly closer to flowers that they are attracted to. This is due to the nectar, which is situated in the center of the bloom, we could say, or the bloom. I'm trying to think of another word for flower. Maybe we could change flower here, which then fly closer to blooms, flowers that they are attracted to. This is due to the nectar, which is situated in the center of the flower. The bee then places itself in order to collect this food source material, okay, this natural material maybe. Okay, let's talk about what happens next. So the bees then go, and it looks like they deposit this nectar into the cells back in the hive. So we're told about the hive here, so we can connect the two. The insects then carry the nectar and make it back to the hive, in which this substance is deposited into the hive cells. So we're using words from the process, but we are trying to expand it at the same time, because if we were to just list the steps, it would, well, firstly, it wouldn't be that interesting to read, and the main reason we wouldn't be hitting the word count here. So let's read this back. Maybe we can add to it. We'll see how we feel about it. It begins with bees in the hive, which then fly closer to blooms of flowers that they are attracted to. This is due to the nectar, which is situated in the center of the flower. The bee then places itself in order to collect this natural material. Maybe we can expand that a little bit. We'll do a full stop, and we could say the bee then places itself on the leaf in order to collect this material. Okay, the bee then places itself on the leaf in order to collect this natural material. The insects then, or we've used then, the insects next, maybe? Next, the insects carry the nectar and make it back to the hive, in which this substance is deposited into the hive cells. Okay, I think that's good. Let's see if we can maybe add anything. Maybe at the beginning we can start with this journey. This journey begins with the bees in the hive, maybe, which then fly closer to blooms of flowers. I think a nice full stop, actually. And then we could say, this is their base, but they then fly closer to blooms of flowers. Fly towards maybe blooms. I'm not sure about areas of not quite wildlife, areas of nature, areas of towards want to describe where the flowers are, but they then fly towards areas rich in maybe foliage, or this is due to the nectar, which is situated in the center of flowers. Once a we don't want to repeat flower. Once the suitable bloom has been chosen, the bee then places itself on the leaf in order to collect this natural material. Okay, I think that's good. So as you can see, we've gone back and tweaked it a little bit, which I think is important. And that looks like a better paragraph now. Okay, so then let's go to stages 5, 6, and 7. Okay. When the nectar, or maybe, well, there's lots filled here, so when there is, and they're all filled here as well, when every cell is occupied with nectar, this is when the bees themselves, this is when the bees use their, well, they look like they're sort of flapping their wings a little bit to produce air. So they're starting a reaction almost. This is when the bees use their wings and rapidly use their wings. Well, this is where, before they use their wings, they sit on the nectar, don't they? So this is when the bees place themselves on top of the hive over the filled cells. Okay, they maybe after that they rapidly move their wings up and down. This creates a movement of air around the, we've used insect in the area. A movement of air localized to the area. Okay, so we're talking about the air, the movement. Then this seems to cause Water to evaporate. This starts this action encourages water to evaporate. Encourages water to evaporate. And on a large with enough workers taking part this produces maybe we could say many workers are involved in this maybe we could put this here. Many workers are involved in this stage. Actually, I think maybe it's okay. This action encourages water to evaporate. Eventually, this leads to honey combs, like we are used to. This leads to honeycombs being produced. Honeycombs, one word. These are then packaged in jars and sold to consumers. Okay, let's read this one back and see how it sounds. When every cell is occupied with nectar, this is when the bees place themselves on top of the hive over the filled cells. Maybe over the this is when the bees place themselves up on top of the hive and covering the nectar, maybe. After that, they rapidly move their wings up and down. This creates a movement of air localized to the area. This action encourages water to evaporate. Eventually, this leads to honeycombs being produced. These are then packaged in jars and sold to consumers. Okay, let's check the words and see if it's enough for this one. Okay, so I was a little worried about the word count for this one, but actually turns out that it's 179 words, so that's perfect, over the 150 minimum there. And yes, you can see how with processes it is a bit tricky because the difficulty I think lies in when in most bar charts or line graphs you have a lot of information, whereas with processes there's not as much information, so you do have to elaborate and draw connections where you see them. Think and think a bit outside the box. You're given some information, but you're not given others. So it's up to you to make those comparisons there. Okay, well, you're in luck because we're about to do the same thing again, just with a different type of process. The diagram below shows how peanut butter is made. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, here we have peanut butter. And it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 step process, starting with harvesting, and then it goes into shelling and roasting, cooling, blanching, skinning. Okay, so this is, on the other hand, this is a man-made process where peanut butter is being produced. Materials are added. Equipment is being used, which we'll talk about. Okay, right, so completely different process this time. So the groups then, let's find a logical stopping point. So we harvest, we shell, we roast, we cool, we blanch, we skin. Maybe the skinning could be a good halfway, and then we grind, we add materials, we second, we grind, and then we add peanut butter. Then we make peanut butter. So I'm going to go step 1, which is harvesting, 6 to 6. So they don't have to be equal. I like to find a logical sort of halfway point. More often than not, there is one. And then let's talk about 7 to 10. Okay, so overall, this man-made 10-step process. This is a man-made 10-step process in which peanut butter is the outcome. During the process, several materials are added. There we go. Okay, so we've been asking ourselves those questions just to help with the overview here. Right, okay, so I think we can go to the write-up now. And we're going to start by just paraphrasing the first sentence as always. The diagram below shows how peanut butter is made. Maybe this time the picture shown outlines the steps in which peanut butter is manufactured. The picture shown outlines the process or the process in which peanut butter outlines how outlines the stages in which peanut butter is manufactured. Stages to make peanut butter, maybe. Very short, this one. The picture shown outlines the stages to make peanut butter. Okay, so on the whole, this 10-step man-made process starts with harvesting and ends with peanut butter being produced. There are some materials that are added during the steps, stages, process, manufacturing, maybe. On the whole, this 10-step man-made process starts with harvesting and ends with peanut butter being produced. There are some materials with an S. Editing is going back and checking your work is so important. There are some materials that are added during the manufacturing of this item. Okay, I think that's good. We can leave it there. Right, so let's get stuck into our first group, which is going to take us until the first grind. So the first 6 stages of this one. Initially, a tractor, it looks like some sort of tractor device, a large piece of equipment resembling a tractor is used to harvest the peanuts on the farm, maybe. Okay, so then the shelling happens. After that, the peanuts themselves are removed from their outer shell and taken to an area in which heat is used to roast them. Okay, so we've done the first 3 stages there. Then they are transferred to this machine to cool them. They are then transferred to a different machine to cool them down. Right, then what happens in the blanching stage? Bacteria killed, skin's easier to remove. Ah, okay. Is this the same piece of equipment? It looks like a different piece from the one before. Right, blanching. Okay. So, another specialist equipment, machine area is used, man-made or another specialist made device is used to blanch the nuts. This simultaneously. Oh, actually, no. This kills bacteria which leave which leaves the skins. This kills bacteria and additionally makes the skins easier to remove. Okay, then we want to talk about the rubber rollers that do the skinning. 2 rollers, maybe the food is then next journeys through 2 rollers this is the action needed to take off the outer skin. Okay, that's quite a large paragraph there. Let's read it back. Initially, a large piece of equipment resembling a tractor is used to harvest the peanuts on the farm. After that, the peanuts themselves are removed from their outer shell and taken to an area in which heat is used to roast them. They are then transferred to a different machine to cool them down. Another specialist device is used to blanch the nuts. This kills bacteria and additionally makes the skins easier to remove. The food next journeys through 2 rollers. This is the action needed to take off the outer skin. Okay, so the remaining steps involve breaking the peanuts down maybe even more. Maybe we could say up until this point, the peanut has remained largely intact. However, in step 7, it is put into, maybe it receives its first grind in a special piece of kit. Extra substances or extra materials or materials are then added to the ground up nuts, including salt, dextrose, don't know what that is, and oil. The peanuts are prepared for their second grind. In the same machine as the first grind. In the same machine where the first grind took place. Okay, then we can tie it all together and say that peanut butter is produced. So this is the end of the processing, and the final step is to package this item up into jars ready to be sold to the public. Okay, let's read back this next paragraph. Up until this point, the peanut has remained largely intact. However, in step 7, it receives its first grind in a special piece of kit. Materials are then added to the ground up nuts, including salt, dextrose, and oil. The peanuts are prepared for their second grind in the same machine, are maybe sent for their second grind in the same machine where the first grind took place. This is the end of the processing, and the final step is to package this item up into jars ready to be sold to the public. Okay, this one's a bit bigger. Let's count the words. All right, well, this one was a bit longer than the last one at 216 words, but we followed the same steps here. We've approached it the same as any task one. So hopefully you can see that today the main difference is being the questions that you ask yourself, in particular for the overview. So just to recap, if you've got a process, you can think about the type of process. Is it man-made? Is it natural? How many steps are there? What's the beginning step? What's the end step? Are there any materials? And what is being produced? So I hope that helps today. And do let us know if you've got any comments or questions. We love to hear from you. And we'll see you in the next one.